Takarazuka Revue fan podcast, where fans from around the world get together to talk about Takarazuka. This is Jen in New York, and...
This is Kate in England.
Woo-hoo!
Not specified.
Around the world, we managed it today. That's step one complete. Yeah, we were just talking before we started recording. It's been so long since we've recorded. We're actually super nervous today, which is pretty funny. So today's episode is going to be about all of the versions of Scarlet Pimpernel that we've seen that Takarazuka has done. But before we get started with Pimpernel, let's talk about some happy things in Takarazuka. So, Kate, how about you? What's your happy thing?
So this is kind of describes life. My happy thing comes from a sad thing because, Nozomi Futo and Maeki are leaving Snow Troop.
Yes.
Yeah, and they've had, they've had their tie-down delayed so many times, and they're finally doing it now, and it's really sad seeing, pictures of, no crowds in white cheering and stuff. But their revue, which is called, Silk Road, a Jewel and a Bandit, such a mouthful, but they got freaking Yoko Kanno to write the theme song for it. And
yes!
Do you know, wait, are you an anime person?
So, a little bit, but I just know that she's a big deal.
Yeah, oh my god, such a big deal. And she wrote this, really, really epic, it's a really long song as well, because, normally Zuka songs are about, 3 minutes long? That's, a 5.5 minute long song. And it was,
nice.
Just the most epic thing you can think of. And they released it on iTunes, and, it instantly went to, top of the charts in Japan. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so proud of them. And I listened to it, and I was I legit could not move for, 2 minutes. Just, completely in shock. My soul left my body in some form. It was oh, it's so good. But yeah, that song is so good. I can probably link to it at some point, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to link to it in the, because I'm sure it's probably in, the preview for the show on their YouTube channel, too.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's awesome. I'm so glad. I mean, I feel like in some ways, retirement can be the most fun time because, all the fans really, come together and show all their love, which is kind of counterintuitive. I actually really love Taidan. It's very emotional, but kind of a happy sad. Yeah.
It is. And I think because so many fans can't actually go this year, they're being they're going crazy with fan mail. It's anything
cool.
to show our love, basically, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh man. Yeah, I feel like my happy thing is kind of a cop-out because
Go on.
Part of me is kind of happy, but also really worried because I know it's been a long time since we recorded. It's been the summer, and since then things have been up and down. But Japan was always kept their infection rates pretty low. But now I've heard on the news lately, and we're recording this beginning of February, and I heard the ICUs in Japan are completely full. They've actually run out of room in the ICUs, which is really scary. But despite that, even in Tokyo, they put some things in place to change theater performance times. I think, I can't remember exactly what the time is, but after a certain point at night, they can't have performances. So, the double show days where the evening performances were a little later, they've shifted all the performance times for Takarazuka shows in Tokyo forward. So, the Tokyo Theater and then, Nippon Seinenkan or I don't know what the other one was. Maybe it was the International Theater there in Tokyo, but they haven't closed them down. They're still going. So I'm happy that somewhere in the world there's still live theater and Takarazuka happens to be one of them because I know Broadway's closed down. I'm sure in England everything's closed down too.
Everything is closed. Oh my god.
Yeah, so yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It makes me happy but sad too because I'm is this really the smart decision? But
it probably isn't, but
yeah.
Vaccine, come and save us all, please.
Yes, and just people keep being smart, wearing your masks, and social distancing and everything. Yeah, I mean, we're both teachers, and it's been weird because in the UK, I think you guys are all
Yeah, everything is on lockdown. No schools are opening yet. Well, all schools
yeah,
are online at least.
yeah, and here in at least in New York State where I teach, we're hybrid, so like half the kids are in school and half aren't, so we can like social distance in the classrooms and space them out a little bit more. But I mean, we were really nervous coming back in September, and in September, I think our infection rate was like 1% of the population in my county, and then it went up to like 12% last month, and we were still like, all these things that they said they were going to do, they kept like moving the numbers. They were like, oh yeah, we're going to close down if we hit 5%, and then they were like, oh, we're just going to do testing if we hit 5%, and then they were like, no, this is too much logistically, never mind, we're not going to do testing anymore. Like, we're back down to 4%, which is great, but where was I going with this story? Just life is crazy. So I know where it was. I was going to say, like, we were super worried, but like if you take the precautions, actually we've been really good in school. Like, there hasn't been a lot of transmission, so that's good. I'm sure that they're doing the same thing in the theater. I know they're taking a lot of precautions. So yes, knock on wood, hopefully everybody stays safe.
Not to make this a PSA, but don't be a douche, wear your mask, wash your hands.
Yeah,
that's all we need.
Yeah, we're definitely dating this podcast, but that's okay. It's part of life. Yes, so let's talk about Scarlet Pimpernel. I'm super excited. Ooh. So, Kate, you said you were a big fan of Wildhorn musicals, so I'm going to let you kick this episode off and tell us a little bit about the English language version. Right,
so I'm going to read from the Wikipedia page because I don't actually know. So apparently, it first became a thing in 1997. That's really old. Anyway, 1997 is the first Broadway version of Scarlet Pimpernel, and I think it's probably one of Wildhorn's first musicals where he had his like very distinct style. I don't know, just like when I think about Wildhorn, I think about this one, and then I think about the one German musical he's done, and just my personal preference. But yeah, so like in all of the songs in Scarlet Pimpernel, you can hear so many of his other songs in them, and which is kind of, well, he did this literally with one of the songs called oh god, don't forget about the name right now. What was it? One of the songs he reused for his musical in 2004, the Rudolph musical, because I think so I think Scarlet Pimpernel didn't perform too well on Broadway, so when he then later wrote the Rudolph musical, which was like much more well received, even though the music was just as good. Actually, maybe it's a tiny bit better, but I think that the music in Scarlet Pimpernel is excellent. But yeah, so basically he thought, okay, no one will notice if I literally just take this song from this old musical that I made, changed up the lyrics, and put it into this new one. So that's what he did. Oh god, the name escapes me right now.
But there's a long tradition of that. Like, I was listening to, I'm really a geek, and I listened to the Met Opera podcast, and I can't even remember. I listen to it when I'm going to bed because it puts me to sleep. But they were talking about some really famous opera composer, and they were talking about how they always like cannibalized and like reused pieces of music. So
great,
long, proud tradition.
But yeah, so oh god, one more
Was it one of the really famous numbers? Was it like...
It was. I'm just trying to...
Days of Glory?
No, it was the song that the female lead sings. Not When I Look at You, because that's all I think of right now. Only Love. There we go. It's called Only Love in Scarlet Pimpernel, and then when it went to Rudolph, it was called, at least in English, Believe in Us. And it was the exact same song. Like he did not change up a single thing, because he sometimes he uses like maybe like the first verse of some song and then changes the second verse for another musical, but for this one he just did not do a single thing to it, which is like just the most hilarious thing. Um, but yeah.
Hey, it's his property. If he wants to reuse it.
Exactly. And it's a really good song. So yes, I hope more people hear it. And yeah, so it's been, I think they stopped performing it on Broadway pretty soon after. I think it was on Broadway for like 1 or 2 years. But then, since then, every single production was done by some theater group in other countries, which I find really funny.
Yeah.
Like, it became a kind of like a college musical, like, yeah, it became like a school musical hit. I don't know how to describe it, but you know how like every school did Guys and Dolls at some point,
Sure.
even though it's like really inappropriate for kids? I think it became one of those musicals that schools do.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense because there's the humor and the pathos and like a little bit of like funky history.
True.
Yeah,
I don't think they've ever performed it on Broadway. Within the US since, I can look, 2000, yeah. All the productions since were in other countries.
See, this is interesting. Like, I was not a Wildhorn fan.
Mm-hmm.
I had probably never even heard of him until they brought him in to do Yolka's final show, which was his first production with Takarazuka in 2006, which was 2 years before they brought over his Scarlet Pimpernel for the first time. So yeah, and I remember going to see it and having no idea like how crazy popular it would be, but we'll come back to that in a minute. So cool. Yeah, so 1997, I was in high school. I was probably a sophomore.
I was -1 years old. Ooh, youth.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting, like, some musicals that you think of as being so famous because they've been done so many times, either like as school musicals, like you mentioned, or just because they've been redone on Broadway. When I look back at them, I'm really surprised because I see they only ran on Broadway for like a year or two, and you're like, really? Yeah, I guess people didn't appreciate them.
Yeah, no, and my thing with Wildhorn is that his most popular musicals are actually his worst. So I don't know if people just have really bad taste or what, but this is my hot take. Like, all of his best musicals did, like, none of them sold well. And it's like, what his most popular one is, Jekyll and Hyde, probably? That's the one that everyone kind of knows about, even without knowing Wildhorn. And in my hot take, it doesn't sound that great. It's so much worse than Scarlet Pimpernel, and no one knows about the Scarlet Pimpernel. So I'm like, well, no one, very few people, like, Broadway fans know about Scarlet Pimpernel, which is, like, kind of weird.
That's interesting. So I'm not, obviously, like I said, I'm not a huge Wildhorn fan. I know that they have done Jekyll and Hyde in Japan, but I don't think Takarazuka has. But Takarazuka did a version.
Yeah, I was about to say that. That was with Makaze.
Yeah.
Right? And then Hiyamiku. Yeah, no, I remember that.
That's interesting. Okay. So what is your favorite Wildhorn musical, just out of curiosity?
It has to be Hikari Furu, the one that Nozomi and Maya did. But after Takarazuka, see, that's like my favorite musical of all time, but there's a bias because it is, Nozomi's Snow Troop, and I'm like head over heels in love with them. But I really do like his Rudolph musical. It's in German, and it was like, that one was 2004, and I don't think, Takarazuka's never touched it, and I don't think Toho's even touched it, and I'm really, really looking forward to like someone doing it again. It's such a good musical. Yeah, I would recommend.
They will, because I mean, Takarazuka's got Meierling.
Yes, exactly.
They've been doing for so many years with so many different like versions that I wonder if they would do a new one.
No, probably not. But like, please, Toho, do it, please. It's so good.
So did Rudolph ever play on Broadway, or was it just a European
it was
show?
just, I think it ran for a year in Germany, and that's it.
Huh, interesting. I'm learning a lot. Okay, so let's talk about what were the differences between the original Broadway or international versions of Scarlet Pimpernel and the version that they did for Takarazuka, because I know he wrote some new music for it.
Yes. So, well, the song that every single Zuka fan knows, because like they sing it every other like music segment. Like whenever someone does a music segment or like releases a mini CD, they always sing that song, and it's a good song, but it's been done to death. I was
Are you
just
talking about the A Piece
Little
of
Piece Cove,
Courage?
or yeah, that one.
Yeah, Hitokakera no Yuki. And
Yeah.
you know what? I understand though, because I'm not a singer. All right, I'm gonna say straight out, I'm like, I've got a terrible voice. But like, when I go to karaoke in Japan, like, for a while, that song was on all the karaoke machines. Like, you didn't
Aw.
have to go to a special machine. And it made me so happy because it's a fun song to sing along to, and it's not super hard. Like, it doesn't hit crazy, like,
Yeah.
notes. So I get it. It's a fun song.
It is. It's really good, and like it's so easy to sing. And I feel like Wildhorn just like cranked the cheese meter up with that song so high. It's like, oh, listen to the harmonies, and then there's like this key pitch shift, and it's like, oh, it's so cheesy and it's so good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so that song has like a really distinctive. I feel like he tried it. See, that song felt like Wildhorn tried to write a Takarazuka song. I don't know whether that makes sense.
Way. Yeah, and you know what? It makes me really curious because as probably most of the listeners know, Frank Wildhorn ended up marrying Walyoka, the Takarazuka top star that he worked with in 2006. I wonder if they were dating by this time, like if he was already kind of coming to Japan and hanging out. I don't know.
Yeah,
because she was already retired. But he would definitely have the connection, so it makes me kind of curious, like if he was like really researching Takarazuka before he like wrote the song, or if it was just like, okay, I kind of know this group already.
There must be something must have happened between him, writing a new song. Yeah, it has to. It has to. And then, of course, then he wrote a full musical for Takarazuka, so
yeah.
Must be.
Yeah. That's so cool. All right. So was there anything else? Because I know I had heard of that, but what else was different?
So as I said, that one song really felt like him writing Takarazuka song. But then there were two other songs, which, because they don't have names in English, I don't know their names. But I think Percy had a new song, and it was no, I think Percy and God, what's her name? Was it Marguerite? Marguerite, they had like a duet song. It was a really short one, but I think that was like halfway through Act 2, I think. There was that song, which sounded really, really Wildhorn, and this one, the other one that I remember really clearly, he actually wrote Chauvelin a new song.
Oh, is that Where's the Girl? Was that a new one too?
No, not that one. Again, I don't know the name, but he kind of sang it again. It was like end of Act 2. I don't know what to describe.
Is that the one where he starts like
I can hum it, but
yeah.
It kind of goes da 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 da. Da 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 da, and kind of flourishes.
That's Days of Glory, isn't it?
Yeah, that one.
Is that Days of Glory?
Yeah, that's the name.
Yes, I love that song. Oh my gosh,
sure.
I didn't realize that was new.
I'm pretty sure that one is new.
Oh, awesome.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, because that number where it like opens up and everybody's dancing on the stage from the
such a good song.
Oh God, I love that scene.
So
yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to think. Am I being is it a new? It has to be. It just has to be a new song, because I've not seen it on like any like bootleg clips, or at least not in the album. I know it's definitely not in the album, but
yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah,
because now that you've said that, I do vaguely recall 12 years ago when I was like reading the news announcements and stuff. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. How about character-wise? Now I'm trying to remember. I think there were some characters that they made bigger for the Takarazuka version. I'm thinking was Saint Just? Is that it? No. The kind of Sanbante
It was...
Yeah,
Oh god,
Marguerite's
I'm trying to
brother?
think.
Is that who I'm thinking of?
No,
The brother?
it had to be Robespierre, doesn't it? Because
Oh, no, I'm thinking of Armand Saint Just. Was his role as big
uh
before Armand? Because
I'm trying to think, because in the version, I'm trying to remember that version. It wasn't a
yeah,
Sambante role, I don't think.
no, I said Sambante, but like, because I was thinking of it in terms of like when Moon Troop did it, it
Mm-hmm.
was a switch role. Chavadan and Armand was a switch
Really? I did
role.
not know that.
Yeah, and
Huh.
it does tend to be young rising
Mm.
stars. I
That would
think,
make
unless
sense.
I'm going crazy. Yeah. Well, no, but Seo Yoriya did it, I guess. So
Oh, it did.
let's see. Did you hear that? That's my cat.
Oh! Hi, kitty.
She's sneezing. Hi,
Oh. I'm so jealous that you have a cat. It's like company. Anyway, sorry.
kitty. Oh, yes, for sure. So, okay. So I think they did, I mean, and that's kind of a Takarazuka thing. They do tend to like make different roles more prominent just to kind of fit the structure of who are the stars
Yes.
of the day. Things like that. Yeah. All right. What else? Anything else we want to hit on Wildhorn's version?
No, that's all I can think of, I think. Let's just go and then talk about Aranke's version then.
That sounds amazing. So my second time living in Japan, I actually moved back to Japan at the end of the summer of 2008, which was when the first Star Troop version of Scarlet Pimpernel opened, was in June of 2008 in the Grand Theater. And then it came over to the Tokyo Theater in end of August that year. So the first show that I went and lined up to see after I had moved back to Japan, I'm pretty sure it was Scarlet Pimpernel, if I'm remembering correctly. So I went with a coworker and like a new friend that I had made, who I found out was really into theater, and I was like, "Oh, there's this thing, you might like it. Let's go check it out." And so I explained to her about like Tojitsuken, like standing in line to get same day tickets, and she was like, "Okay, that sounds good." And we lived about 2.5 hours from Tokyo by train. So we got up super early and we took the first train in at like 5 a.m. and we got there and the line was around the building already.
Oh, wow.
And if you've ever done Tojitsuken in Tokyo, like the popular shows do tend to be crazy. Like later we ended up lining up for Elizabeth. Like we came the night before and we slept in front of the theater. But like I wasn't expecting this because I didn't know anything about Scarlet Pimpernel. I was just like, oh, it's Toko. I like Toko. So we went and lined up and we ended up being like right before the cutoff point of like, okay, all the tickets are gone. It was like 2 people behind us. So yeah. And later we came back a couple times to try again. And every time it was like complete failure. It was really sad. But we did get to see it once. And she fell in love with Takarazuka because of the show. So that made me happy.
Oh, that's amazing.
I love spreading the Takarazuka love. But yeah, it was so much fun for me because it really was the perfect show for the Star Troop of the time. Like, Aran-Kei has a gorgeous voice. She's a famous singer. She was kind of like a master statesman of Takarazuka at the time. She was one of those actresses who becomes top star quite late in her career. So she had mastered some of the things that I think people don't appreciate how hard comedy is. Like, in a lot of interviews, actors and actresses often talk about comedy is like the hardest thing to do on stage, and she had it down because there's a lot of different little skits that are kind of riffs, and so every version of the show, like, she would do a different little joke or, bad pun and stuff like that. And there's a couple places throughout the show that the top star has to do that as Percy Blakeney. So it was just hilarious every night. And she'd have the audience in stitches. And this was kind of like Yuzuki Reion's first biggish role, I want to say.
Was it? Oh, that's...
Let me see. I'm going to open up because... Yeah. I mean, she'd had a couple, like, small theater lead roles.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd had... Like, she played some Nibante roles for Toko in other shows, but they weren't... Like, this was the first kind of, like, big Western style, famous, like, this role has chops. Like, Chauvelin, the deepness of the songs that these actresses have to hit is really, really hard on their voices, and she mastered it. And everybody, like... Even though Toko is amazing, I think Chie came out as one of the big stars. And of course,
definitely.
And Tono Asuka, who's Marguerite St. Just, was also amazing. So, like, it just, overall, it was just amazing. And I just remember, like I said, we'd come back to, like, stand in line again and again and again. And we never got tickets, but just talking to all the Japanese fans, like, the hype around this show was something I'd never seen before.
Aww.
It was just really, really cool. And I ended up going... I feel like I went to Chie's Ochakai, but I don't know if it was for this show or not. I'll have to double check.
Memories.
Yeah, I'm like, this is 12 years ago. But I wrote down, like, all my Irimachi, Demachi, like, Ochakai experiences. So I'm going to link all those in the post that we put. So if anybody's kind of curious to actually get some, like, good gossip around this show, go check that out. But I loved this show, and I know you've seen it too, Kate. Yeah. What did you think about Toko's version?
It's, again, her voice is so good, and as you said, she's like naturally a very funny person. And actually, there's so many parallels between Toko's version and the new Hoshigumi Kurenai Yuzuru's version, which I'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I actually watched it with another friend who I was like newly dragging into the Zuka fandom, and I remember that her impression of Chie is like this really flashy top star of Hoshigumi, and she was never quite that into her because she thought she was too flamboyant and like too loud and not like, I don't know, she just didn't think she had too much going for her. But then she watched that version of Scarlet Pimpernel and she was like absolutely in love with that particular version of Chauvelin, and I agree, like Chia was absolutely amazing in that. Like she nailed, I mean, she's not the best singer, but she nailed all of the songs, and she definitely nailed the character. Like she was such a believable Chauvelin, and I just loved it. It's so good. All of the angst she played out so well. It was so angsty.
See, this is why I think the Nivante roles tend to be a little bit more meaty than the top star roles sometimes, definitely. Even though they might not have as much stage time, but like when they get to be the villains, like villain roles are so fun. Yeah. And this is a great one. Yeah, for sure. All right. How about, I'm just looking quickly through the cast list. Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about. Yeah. Talking about gossip. Like we try to avoid it a little bit on this podcast, especially when it's kind of vicious gossip. But there was a huge controversy. So you know the Little Prince, Louis Charles. Yes. So the actress who played Louis Charles was Mizuse Chiaki. And she had debuted in 2007. So she was like Ken 1. She was quite young, maybe Ken 2 by this point. I see. But she was kind of like a rising Musume Aku star. She had been set up to do like the lead role of another show the next year, and she ended up just leaving abruptly. From Takarazuka. And again, this is not based on any published data. This is all rumor that I heard this from somebody who knew somebody who knew
Yeah.
somebody kind of a deal. But apparently she had kind of a mental breakdown from all the pressure.
Oh no.
And I know we've talked before about how much they push these young stars, especially the Musumeyaku, who are expected to kind of become these huge top stars when they're like 18 years old,
Yeah.
which is kind of insane. But then after that, she turned up starring in these like kind of adult videos.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh wait,
that
no, I
was
think
like,
I've heard this one actually.
yeah, that
Oh
was like
yeah, okay, yeah.
more scandal on top of it,
Mm.
because everybody is like, well, she should have done, as a Takarazuka actress, pure, proper. She should,
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, it's her life, she's got to do what she's got to do. But yeah, it was like a double whammy, kind of crazy scandal. And part of me wonders if the rumors about the mental breakdown might actually be more about because she appeared in the adult videos, which I think because there's the stigma against that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one in the US too, but I think particularly in Japan. So I do not know if that's true. It could have just been she was like, you know what, this is boring. I don't want to do this. I'm going to go do something a little bit more racy, So
You do you.
Yeah, but it's kind of interesting because it's almost like I feel like there's after that, like Louis Charles tends to go to like young musumeyaku and otokoyaku, and it seems like Manaki Reika had it later, and as an otokoyaku and later became a musumeyaku, and then who played?
I can tell you exactly. It was, oh god, Sera Hitomi. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like there was somebody else who was in a role like that, and it felt like it was cursed. So.
I mean, with wait, was it Sera Hitomi? Yeah, it was Sera Hitomi. With her though, it's also kind of cursed because she's she's one of the youngest people to go into Senka, and then to like start starring in movies outside. Wait, did we ever talk about that news?
No, go ahead. We're gonna have a little side note.
I think this wasn't even like news. This was quite a while ago when she got transferred to Senka in what freaking Ken 4? Wait, I'm trying to look this up now. Sera Hitomi. Yeah, there we go. She is in Senka. Yep, Ken 4. Went to Senka.
Yeah.
And she didn't. Of course, Senka didn't have anything on at that time, and she basically just, like, she was meant to star in Koto's, like, Grand Theatre debut. But then she just, like, her role was released, and then she just didn't do it, and they gave that role to someone else because she was transferred to Senka in such a hurry, and she was in Senka for like 2 months when Hankyu like announced that she was going to be starring in films and TV shows outside of Takarazuka. And so that was like weird.
That's crazy. Yeah, that was a lot more common in like the 50s and 60s, but they're
so strict with it now that I just can't. I mean, she is like gorgeous. She is so pretty, but like I don't know, that was such a weird move.
Yeah, interesting. And they were maybe they were looking to diversify and see if what they'd done 50 or 60 years ago would still work. But that's cool.
Anyway, sorry about that.
No. There's a lot more we could talk about, but just because I know we don't want to talk too long about Scarlet Pimpernel, we want to have time to talk about the other productions. But I do want to hit on the Shinshin Koen cast for this production.
Yes.
The lead roles. Kurena Yuzuru, which I remember when they announced this, I was still in the States at that point, and I like screamed because I had loved Yuzuru for a long time, but all of her Shinko roles before that were like a random like father role or guy in the background. Like she had never even had like a Sanbante or Nibante Shinko role, and suddenly like this was her last Shinshin Koen production, and they gave her the lead. Like, and if you guys know in Takarazuka, if somebody doesn't have a Shinko lead, it is very, very rare that they will ever make top star. So I think somebody looked at her and said, She might not have quite the acting, singing, dancing chops yet, but she's got that aura that we want. So let's give her this so that she's got that under her belt so that we have that option in the future. I'm not sure exactly if that's how it went, but I remember being so happy, and the role fit her perfectly.
It does. I know, right?
Which, obviously, because later we'll talk about how she did it as a top star. But the Musumeyaku lead in the original Star Troop Shujinkoen was Aono Yuki, who played Marguerite, and she later went on to become top Musumeyaku of Moon Troop, and she played Marguerite
wait, what?
2010 Moon Troop version.
Wait.
Yes.
Oh, I just realized this. That is crazy.
Yes. So she had actually done the role before, which was kind of cool. And I love her so much. I love Aono Yuki. She's like my favorite Musumeyaku. So.
She is great.
So that's
anyway, segue too.
Yes. Well, I'm just double checking really quick to make sure I don't miss anybody else we want to talk about.
Let's see.
Makaze Suzuho played Armand St. Just in the Shinko version. Speaking about the Armand role. Any other? Yumisaka Nene, who later became Chie's partner.
Yeah.
Who did she play?
She was actually a named character in the main production.
Yes, she was Marie. She was Armand's girlfriend. Yes. So, yeah, there were actually a lot of probably popular, famous names that you might know if you flip through that acting roles. So, but yeah, I think those are the big ones that we want to hit on. Yeah, it was interesting. I remember I was just like poking around at the entries that I'd made when I was first watching the show, and I was like, the background is kind of vibrating in weird ways. Like, it almost seems like things are falling apart. And my friend who saw it in the Grand Theater was like, yeah, I think they were having a little bit of trouble designing the set for this production, which of course they fixed it a little bit by Tokyo, and of course by the next time they did the show I think they fixed it a lot more, but there were some interesting moving parts to it. A little flimsy
design choices.
Yeah. But I love the lighting choices, and I did love how they designed the sets, because there were some cool, like, the set would open up for bigger chorus numbers and things like that, which was kind of cool.
And oh my god, the freaking boat. The ship song.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, well, that's for the next production.
Yes, go on. You
Remind me to talk about the boat when we go into the next production. What else did I want to hit on? Oh, and I wanted to talk about the finale. So when they use the grand staircase to do the final couple of numbers, like that Otokoyaku grand staircase dance number, it's a good one. I like that one a lot. I could watch that one again and again and again. Makes me wonder who choreographed it. It was probably Wakao Risa, because I see she's on the choreographer list. I'll have to double check my CD case and see. Yes, so that's Toko's version, Star Troop 2008. Anything else before we go on to the next one?
Nope.
All right.
Now you talk about the Tsukiku.
So this was 2010, and Ryu Masaki is my star that I'd been following since like 2006. So, and at the time she was like this little nobody baby. Well, no, that's not true, because she was getting some Shinko leads, but she was little, and just the year before, suddenly out of nowhere, she got one of the big roles in Elizabeth, and I was like, what is going on? Like, I had expected her to have like Elmer, and suddenly they gave her oh my god, my mind is blanking, the narrator,
Lucchini.
Luigi Lucchini. Yeah, and I was like, what? No, what? Like, how? So, and then in 2010 she got her Bow Hall role of Hamlet, like lead role, and it was amazing. It was so Masaki, because it was this screaming rock opera version of Hamlet, and I loved it. But it was really tough on her voice to do these like screaming rock songs every night. And then immediately after she finished that, she goes into rehearsals playing double role of Shavadon and Armand in Scarlet Pimpernel, and Shavadon just destroyed her voice. Like, And I remember we were all like in tears because on opening night, and Masaki's voice was just a mess.
No.
It was a mess. And it didn't improve much for the next few weeks. And that was like her pride and joy was as a singer, which I don't know if I completely agree that the singing was Masaki's best feature. But like whenever you read articles, they always were like, you know, the singer. So obviously somebody else thought it was. And I do love her singing voice, but everybody talked about it like, and I'm like, well, like I get it with Toko. Like Toko had an amazing singing voice. Masaki's voice is good, but it wasn't like, But anyway, yeah, it was destroyed, and everybody was really concerned that she was still pushing herself, even though her voice was, you know, and so we were like, is she getting pallips? Like, what's going on? And like, this was the most honest I've ever heard of Takarazuka talking at her ochakai, her Grand Theater ochakai for Scarlet Pimpernel. They brought her in on an overhead, and they had like 3 or 4 different misters set up around her. And she didn't talk. She wrote her answers on the overhead for her ochakai. Because she had no voice. You know, she had to rest it as much as she could. And she talked about it. She said, you know, I've been to the doctor. It's not a polyp. There's no concern about it. Scarring. Like, we're being very careful. But obviously these had been concerns. You know, the fact that she was talking about, I've never heard Takarazuka be that honest about this kind of stuff while they were still in the review. So it was terrifying, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
like,
can't imagine.
A lot of us thought her career was going to end with this show, but her voice like slowly improved, and by the time I saw her in Tokyo, you really couldn't tell, although again she was resting her voice, and the ochakai in Tokyo they did the same thing. Like, she didn't talk or sing. Which usually she'd sing for us during our ochakai. But after this point, she never did again, which was kind of sad. Yeah, but you know, it's a demanding job being a star in Takarazuka, but I loved her Chavadan, and I wasn't expecting to love her Armand, but I actually liked her Armand too. He was cute. Yeah, and I was not expecting to like the Moon Troop version as much as the Star Troop version, because I had absolutely fallen in love with the Star Troop version. And I actually loved the Moon Troop version more. And I was super surprised. And then part of me is like, well, I'm biased because I love every single actress in this troupe. But no, I know this is a controversial opinion, but I like Aono Yuki's singing voice better than Tono Asuka in this performance, which is kind of, everybody else is going to be like, are you crazy? Like, Tono Asuka was amazing. And I'm like, she was a little bit too much for me. So, and Kirian was also an actress who became top star quite late, so she also was like an amazing actress, and she was hilarious as Percy. And Asumi Ryo, I guess she was good too. No, she was actually really, really good as Armand as well. She had the evilness of Armand down pat. So that was great. Chavadan. I mean, sorry.
I just remembered the little mustache. No, the beard that Masaki and Asumi wore just looked a tiny bit too out of place, and I just find it adorable. Like, it's hilarious, but it's also adorable.
Yeah, they both have very tiny faces. Yeah.
It's great.
But there were actually a lot of like upperclassmen in Moon Troop at the time who had Shinjin-Koen leads, so they had been on the star track, but then they kind of started going horizontal instead of vertical on the track. So they were still like stars, and they were still getting like leads in small theater shows, but everybody knew they weren't going to become top stars anymore. And so like Seijo Kaito was Sir Andrew Ffoulkes, and Aoki Izumi was Lord Anthony Dewhurst, who are like Percy's best friends, who kind of help him with all his hijinks. And so like this is where the scene in the boat comes in. So in the boat, they're like sitting in the rigging of the boat.
Yep.
And so, God, I can't remember now who was senior most. I think Aoki Izumi was senior most, so she had to be and again, I can't remember if it's stage right or stage left. It's like Takarazuka is very like regimented in like seniority. So the person with most seniority has to be, I think, like stage right. Or stage left. I can't even remember. I'll have to get a snapshot to find out. But whichever one it was. But everybody asked, well, could we switch them? Because one of them was left-handed. And they were like, it would make more sense for them to be on the other side so they could hold the rigging, you know? And the director was like, no.
Screw you.
No, that messes up the seniority. We can't do it that way. So I remember hearing that story and being like, what? Like, that's crazy. But yeah, I mean, those are the kinds of things that are being considered when they're like staging things and figuring out the set placements, which is, and the blocking. I'm like, what? Who else? I'm not going to talk a lot. Again, I'm going to post links to like Irimachi Damachi and like my observations of the show at the time, because it's been 11 years and I don't remember that much on the details, but I do remember really enjoying, like I saw it, I think like 15 maybe times or something like that.
Wow.
So yeah, so I will share all those. But Shinko lead was Tamaki Ryo, which we all know who she is now. And Aya Hoshirion played Marguerite, which was interesting because she had been an otokoyaku just before this.
Oh.
Yeah. And then she kind of retired semi-early, which was kind of sad. And Shimon Yuria played Shavaran, and everybody was like, yay, Yuria! Because she's like this, you know, she was an actress everybody was cheering for, and she was kind of a fan favorite, even though she was never really Star Trek.
Yeah.
So I think that was like her biggest Shinko role. I could be wrong. Let me see. No, that's not right, because she did have a lead the next year. But yeah, Yuria. And good times. Good times. I'm just kind of looking through to see if there are any other future top stars in there I should mention.
Yeah, let's look.
Who played Muri? Oh, that's it. So Toka Yurino, who was actually an elder musumeyaku in the troupe, played Armand's girlfriend.
Oh, wait. Oh, wow.
Which was, because usually it's like the Nibante musumeyaku, and everybody was like, this is amazing, this is so awesome, because she's a really good singer and
I
actress.
love her. She's so good.
And she never really, I mean, later she got to play Sophie, she got to play Lady Capulet in some show. Like, she got to do some really juicy shows for somebody who was never Star Trekked. But I remember we were all kind of like, because she debuted in 2000. So she debuted the year before Masaki and 2 years before Mirio. So even though she was like their musumeyaku partner in the show when they played Armand, she was senior to them, which is very unusual in Takarazuka. Yeah. So that was super cool. I remember being excited about that.
I love her.
Yeah, so that is Moon Troop's 2010 version of Scarlet Pimpernel, which was awesome.
Woo-hoo.
Let's talk about the most recent version.
Okay, let's talk about the 2017 Star Troop version of Scarlet Pimpernel. So, well, first of all, you know, amazing. Kurenai Yuzuru gets, because Scarlet Pimpernel was her, Grand Theatre debut, I think.
Yes, I was going to say, I think it was.
So she gets her biggest Shinko role as her Grand Theatre debut, which I just think is just beautiful. It's so nice, and like, maybe it's just something about, I don't know, the role of Percy that requires someone who has more experience, because Kurenai Yuzuru was also really late to her top stardom. Well, not really late, but like later than all of the other top stars, you know, 2 years around her. But yeah, no, she's been in Ibante for quite a long time, and you always hear her talk about, you know, like that anxiety of never be able to reach the top, and it's like, oh, when she finally became top star and got to perform her Shinko role, it's just, it's so nice. And to be honest, I wasn't the biggest Kurenai fan to begin. Like, when she first became top star, I was like, why her kind of feeling. But then she just has that charm. Like, yes, even after so many years, she is still not like the best singer, although her singing's gotten so much better, and she's actually really, really good in Scarlet Pimpernel, I have to say. She's not like the best actress or the best dancer, but she is so funny. She is so naturally funny, and again, she can pull off those like those funny jokey bits without like even cracking a smile, while everyone else is kind of like dying inside to not laugh out loud on stage. And she's just she's so funny. She's so funny, and this role is so suited to her. And I just
has she ever done Me and My Girl? Because I was just
she has not, and she'd be so good with that. I know, right? Oh no, don't give me any new ideas. Like, every single time it's like, oh, so many wasted potentials that people could have played. Like, one of my favorite daydreams is coming up with musicals for my favorite top stars to play. Like, should have done that. Anyway, so yeah, that's that. So yeah, that's Kurenai Yuzuru. And what else do I want to say about? So the bits where she had to come up with, so the jokey bit, the jokey bit where like the three of them meet, so the three main characters, and Percy was saying something like, oh, why are you dressed in all black? You look so solemn, you don't look like you're going to a party. And Shoman kind of goes, oh, it's just the way I dress. And Percy goes, oh, should I borrow some, like, lend you some of my clothes? I think that's the jokey part for all of the versions. But then they kind of do their own thing. I think, what did Toko do? I think she talks about Berubara once. I can't remember what's for the other version. But yeah, basically, I think for Kurenai's version, she sang the Om Shanti Om theme, like, with different lyrics, and like, it was absolutely hilarious because she was so in control of the situation. But then the top Musume Kisaki Airi and Koto were just like, they did not know how to respond to it. They were like so taken aback. And I was like, oh, it's just the funniest thing. Like, it feels a bit stressful because, I mean, yeah, whenever you're on stage with Kurenai Yuzuru, you're going to expect something weird to happen. But like, she pulled that off so flawlessly, and it was hilarious watching like Koto slightly break out of her Chauvelin character and going like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I freaking love that. But yeah, so that's Percy. Kisaki Airi as Marguerite was, again, she is a very, very pretty Musumeyaku. Not really, I don't know if there's anything else to say about her. Her singing was like mediocre. Like mediocre to good.
Yeah, Marguerite's a hard role.
Yeah, it definitely was.
A lot of really hard, high kind of almost operatic. Yeah.
And she can very, very easily get squeaky if she's not careful. But no, I think, again, as a Grand Theatre debut, she pulled that off wonderfully. But, with Koto as Chauvelin, like, you can't comment on anyone else's singing because Koto was just amazing. Like, because the thing with Koto, right, she has an adorable face. Like, no matter how much eyeshadows and, like, I don't know what makeup terms are, but, like, no matter how much shadows you put on her cheekbones, she has this adorable baby face.
Right.
And you just can't hide that cuteness. But then, when she opens her mouth, it's like such a broody voice. And just like, what?
I remember Chie was like that. Like, well, not so pretty so much as like, Chie has a very deep voice, which I didn't, like, when she, at that time, when she was still pretty young, like I was still thinking of Chie as being this like baby underclassman. And she still kind of had a very round face. And so like the first time I heard Chie sing, I was like, how is this deep voice coming out of
Yeah,
this?
no,
Like...
actually, that's true. That is true. And it's just funny because like Koto is basically Chie like version 2.0 because like she shinkoed like every single one of her shows. But like
Yeah.
it's really funny seeing like kind of like almost the second generation of Hoshigumi Scarlet Pimpernel, and it's great. It's so good. But yeah, so that's the three main characters. What else? What else?
Now, Nanami Hiroki, was she was Robespierre,
Yes,
right?
she was.
And she had pretty recently transferred into Star Troop. I remember that was a move that had kind of surprised me.
Oh yeah, that's true. True. And then wasn't she, well, she became or she was already, no, it must be became really, really good friends with Kurenai, right? To the point where they had like those what's that show called? Brilliant Dreams, I think, maybe? Segments?
Were they classmates? Let's see.
No. Kurenai was 1 year older than Nanami.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, no. So yeah, Nanami was already there when Kurenai had her small. Was it about? Yeah, I think it was about whole. What was it? Catch Me If You Can.
Mm-hmm.
She was like kind of Nibante in that one. I remember.
Oh,
Not seen it though.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in that one, in Scarlet Pimpernel, I think Nanami had one song.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, there's only that one song.
Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah, so it's really, really funny how many of the 89 class have played Robespierre. Like if you think about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Like almost all of them. Well, not almost all of them, but like the big
in one
ones.
type of production or another. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. But yeah, no, at the moment I can't think of anything else. There was something else I was gonna say, but I can't think of it. Yeah, just looking through the cast list.
So, did you see the Shinjin-koen for
Oh yes, sorry. That's what I was going to talk about. So the Shinji Koi version is again excellent because Amahana is such a good singer. She has one of those really really sturdy, same thing. Sturdy and like smooth voices. It's not like too low, but it's really sturdy and it's like really warm. And then of course Arisa is an amazing singer as well. And
I'm so sad Arisa hasn't become top star yet.
I know, and like, you know, not to jinx it, but she's not gonna have the chance either, I don't think.
Well, you never know. There have been a couple Musume who've become.
Yes. Okay, no, we're not talking about news this time. We're not talking. We'll leave it till next time. But yeah, so no, Shinji Koi is like, I guess acting-wise, it was decent, but singing-wise, it was a really, really solid show because they somehow managed to find this new kid who, again, I've not seen her in anything else. Her name is Haruto Yuho. She's not played anything else significant, but she had this one Shinko, and if you listen, the first time I listened to the track, I thought that I clicked on the wrong thing because she sounded so much like Koto. And for a Shinko person to sound like for anyone to sound like Koto is like, would be an accomplishment. And it was this kid who we've never heard of before. And she's
been on my radar. Like, I have her bookmarked on the Takawiki. She's one of the few like underclassmen that I was following for a long time.
Her singing voice, again, it's deep. It's really, really deep. And it's like velvety like Koto's. And I was just like, what? How have I never heard of this kid? But yeah, and then for Robespierre they had Ayana, who is now in Snow and on a solid trajectory of being something. I don't know what, but like something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really solid Shinko cast, I'd say.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like it is a tough. Anytime they do a Western musical, sometimes it can be really demanding because, let's be honest, these women are usually not singing in their natural voices.
No.
Like, they're either shoving it very low or shoving it very high, and when they try to match that to a Western musical, sometimes the results are
interesting.
a little iffy. But I feel like they've managed to, in all of these productions that they've done, like main stage and Shinjin Koen, like, even if the singing was a little, like, they matched like good actresses, and yeah,
So
they haven't had a flop yet.
No. And sorry, going back to Shinko, I was so happy when Amahana got that Shinko, because like she was one of the first like otokoyaku that I've noticed from when she was like relatively young-ish, because I came into the Taka fandom only knowing the big stars. Right. Amahana was the first like young person that I've noticed, and I just love her singing voice and like just her dorkiness. And I was like, oh my god, she's getting a Shinko. That must mean she has a chance. So far, I don't know. I still really, really wish, she'll get something great again. But yeah, we shall see. But can I also say that the Shinko. Okay, no, that's not fair. But Kurenai Yuzuru's not costume, but her look, her Percy look was, let's say, unconventional. Because, okay, right, so I don't know if you've seen the, actually, does it look like it on the posters? Let me look at the posters. Because the poster is fine, but when she was actually on stage, at least the recording that I watched, she had the usual, like, hairdo and the red jacket and everything else was fine. She had a really nice muted red color theme with like black pants and stuff. But then she had on this purplish pink lipstick, which was just the weirdest thing. And I remember when I was in the live stream, like the first 2 minutes, no one was talking about the show. Everyone was just talking about the damn lipsticks. Like, why? Why would you make that choice? It looks awful on you.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
And part of me wonders, because I know that they did always seem to be... Because I remember when the posters first came out for... I don't know if it was Toko so much as like Kirian's. Like, the makeup suddenly was, for the Otokoyaku, was much more natural than a lot of them had been. Like, the eye shadow was much... like, it faded more naturally than like kind of the like abrupt makeup that had been like really popular before that. It was kind of like a moving over. And so I wonder if like maybe Amahana was like looking at those and she was like, oh, I like this kind of purplish. I'm sure it's going to look good on me.
But yeah, not only lipstick, she also had on a blonder than usual Percy wig. It was just a really weird look, not gonna lie. Like,
oh my goodness.
I don't know, Kurenai maybe was trying to add to the funniness, but it was a look that didn't quite work out. But I love Kurenai, like, regardless, so I'm just like, it's hilarious. I'm sure it's meant to be funny in some way, knowing her. But yeah, it's just, that's a fun bit about that.
Funny. All right. Have we talked out? There is one more thing that I wanted to talk about, but I want to make sure we have covered everything. I think we have
exhausted everything else.
Awesome. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about was going back to the original source material. So Frank Wildhorn's musical is based on a novel by, and you know what? I don't know how to pronounce her name. Baroness, is it Orski?
Oh god, I lost the link.
It's ORCZY.
Oh.
And I know that a lot of people that I've talked to, of like my generation and slightly older, grew up reading this novel as teenagers. Like I never read it as a kid, and I still haven't read it. But it was very beloved by a lot of people I've talked to. So I thought that was interesting. And so Takarazuka actually had done versions of the Scarlet Pimpernel prior to these three that we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. That were not based on the Broadway version, but were based on the original source material, the novel.
I see. What was it called?
And so there was a version in 1979 that was, instead of a 2-act play, it was part of, there were two, like there was a 1-act show, and then the second act was Scarlet Pimpernel.
I see.
So yeah, it was called Scarlet Pimpernel, and Flower Troupe did it in 1979 in Grand Theater and Tokyo Theater, and Percy Blakeney was Matsu Akira. Mm-hmm. Marguerite St. Just was Kitahara Chikoto. Shavaran was Misato Kei. And they had 2 different Shinko casts with names that probably most of you have not heard of. But we'll put a link into the blog post too, so you can check out, because we've actually got most of the cast. So it's kind of cool to see some of those names you might be familiar with from other shows. They're a pretty popular group of actresses from the 70s. Mm-hmm. And then they redid it again as a national tour show in 1995, Flower Troupe again. And again, it was like 1 act of a 2-act show. And this time, Percy Blakeney was Maya Miki.
Nice!
Marguerite was Junarisa, who was a very young Musumeyaku top star, actually. Shavaran, Aika Mire. A lot of people have probably
nice.
Her. Misa Noeru played the Prince of Wales. So a lot of people might know her because she was a Senka member for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So, and one of my favorite actresses, Shibuki Jun, played Sir Andrew Ffoulkes. So I would love to get my hands on a copy of this if they ever broadcast it on Sky Stage. But I don't have the complete cast list from this show, so I'm very curious to know who else played who. So if anybody has the program from this national tour show and you'd be willing to share the cast page with me, I would love to update the Takawiki, but I will link to those so you guys can check it out. Yeah, but that's kind of cool. So they did all these versions of Scarlet Pimpernel, and that was 1995, so 2 years before Frank Wildhorn's debuted on Broadway, which is kind of cool. Yeah, random fact of the day.
The more you know.
Awesome. So, okay, let's make a prediction.
Oh,
so it's only been Moon Troupe and Star Troupe that have done this show so far. Could you see anyone else doing it?
I can definitely see Cosmo doing it.
Oh, who would be the top star?
Oh, you know what? Yeah. I would love to see Kiki and Junhana do this.
Because they have announced their opening show, haven't they?
They have. No, they have.
Yeah. I know. There's been a lot of announcements, and we're
saving that for next time.
A news program coming out soon, because we know it's been a while, but Kitty wanted to be on it, so we're waiting for her to get a chance to join us. But yeah, there's been a lot of cool news that we will love to talk about.
And also just absolutely bonkers, like, why the heck would you do that kind of news? But you know.
Yes.
Bless. But yeah, no, I can so see Cosmo doing that, and also because like it's not really a snow stuff. It's definitely not a snow play. Especially now that Daimon and Kiho are leaving, they're probably going to do.
Snow Troupe tends to have really strong chorus.
They do, but I have a feeling that they're going to revert back to Nihomono for a while. Just because Daimon basically did no Nihomono in her time. Yeah. It was like, we're forgetting that you guys are a Nihomono troupe.
Yeah. That's funny.
But yeah.
I'd be curious to see Flower Troupe do it.
Oh, who would you predict then? Like, which year?
Oh, man, let me see. I don't even know. We've been talking about how out of touch I am these days. I'm like, who's the top star in Flower Troupe right now?
Yeah.
I'm so.
I feel like if we
don't know,
talk more, we'll get into news, so...
Yeah, but is Yuzukare, is she, like, I don't think I've actually seen her in anything. Is she a good actress?
She is...
Or...
She can't... Her singing voice is, let's say, unsatisfactory.
Which is sad, because Flower Troop usually has the really great Otokoyaku stuff singing. Interesting. So probably not gonna
probably
be
the
Flower
generation
Troop
after
soon.
that, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. They've got to do it again soon.
And, you know, I mean, it tends to be, they buy the rights so that they can do it in Takarazuka and in other, because Hankyu also owns other theaters. Yeah. So they usually, like, produce it in Takarazuka and then outside of Takarazuka with, like, a male and female cast. And so I imagine that they're probably not going to buy the rights to it, if they haven't yet, until things calm down and they know the theaters are going to... Because I imagine it's an expensive show to get the rights for. But
probably.
But I don't know for sure.
I mean, it's not very popular in the US anymore, I guess.
Right, but it's such a popular show in Takarazuka. I can't imagine.
It is.
I imagine within at least the next 5 years they're going to do it again.
Yeah.
If they get the right cast together. Yeah.
My bet's on Cosmo again, still.
That's great. So I would love for our listeners to tell us what you think about the productions that you've seen so far, any memories of seeing it on DVD or Blu-ray or in person, and tell us your guesses. When is it going to come back to Takarazuka? Yeah, for sure. Please join our conversation. We'd love to know what you think.
Tell us that the fandom is not dead. Some signs of life.
Please communicate with us. Yes. Speaking of being dead, you guys might have noticed our blog was down for like 3 weeks last month, and I apologize. I tried to get a warning up in time. For some reason, our bandwidth has been going crazy. I think there might be like a bot that's been attacking it. So if that ever happens again in the future, just make sure you bookmark our YouTube channel because all of our stuff is up there too. So yeah. All right. Anything else to add?
Nope, I think that's it for me.
All right. I'm just trying to think of like a closing comment. Just like, this is such a great show, and I'm sure all of our listeners have seen it because I think most Takarazuka fans have seen at least one version. But if for some reason you have not, I highly, highly recommend, especially if you're one of those people who likes to buy things and doesn't like know what to get. I highly recommend this one because especially if you don't speak Japanese, like you can find the English version, and it's so similar to it that you won't be lost watching it. So, yes. Right.
Oh, it's so nice talking about Takarazuka again.
Yes, we have got to keep this up again. I know life has been crazy busy, but we will try to start recording a little bit more as we head into the spring, for sure. All right, guys. Thank you, and bye.
Yes, take care. Bye.
Many thanks to Michael B. and the Arcanum String Quartet for their wonderful arrangement of Sumire no Hana Sakugoro. And thank you, listeners, for enjoying our podcast.